Welcome to the NEI podcast. I'm Dr. Sabrina Siegel.
I'm really excited about today's episode because we're going to be talking about what exercise can do to help people who've suffered from traumatic brain injury. I'll be referring to this from now on as TBI for the remainder of this podcast. I'll start by bringing you some of the most current research on exercise and recovery from TBI, and then I'll be interviewing a military veteran, Justin Davis, whose own story is incredible. We'll discuss how his personal experience with TBI and golf rehabilitation resulted in his own recovery and how he is paying it forward by opening his own Golf Rehabilitation Foundation in California. When someone experiences a TBI, there's often a myriad of neurological and psychological symptoms that follow, whether they occur in the short aftermath or much later. These can be anything from cognitive impairment to symptoms of post-traumatic stress, to depression, to anxiety, and even trouble sleeping. Research on the types of neurological damage that occurs from TBI, depending on the type of injury, is still ongoing. We know that there may be focal damage or diffuse damage that results in axon stretching, tearing, or shearing. No matter what type of injury to the brain occurs, there's a cascade of molecular events that eventually result in cell death in different regions throughout the brain. And this is most likely what leads to those horrible psychological and neurological symptoms. I'm going to share with you some studies on how exercise improves recovery in TBI, and then, in the interest of time, we're going to focus on just a few studies about how exercise can help alleviate some of the neurological and psychological symptoms in patients with TBI. There are animal models with specific brain injuries that are performed, for example, on rats or mice, to examine cognitive and behavioral impairments and to test the effectiveness of different interventions to see if they might aid in recovery for traumatic brain injury that we might then be able to translate over to human research. So with these animal models, there is evidence that the stress response is heightened for about 2 weeks following a mild TBI injury. Researchers test this by subjecting the rat to a stressor and then measuring his stress hormones from his blood. A common stressor that is used is called restraint stress, where the animal is confined to a container or very small space where he can't move. This is considered a mild stressor and induces a normal stress response in healthy animals. But in animals that have suffered from a TBI, they have a more pronounced stress response that lasts longer than controls. In one study, 6 weeks of daily or intermittent voluntary wheel running exercise returned the animal's stress response to normal for mild stressors like restraint stress. In terms of cognitive impairment, there is a neurotrophic factor that's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, that gets released when we exercise. BDNF is really exciting because it's actually responsible for neurogenesis. In a 2009 study, animals were given access to a running wheel for 7 days, and others were not given access to this wheel. They were allowed to exercise 2 weeks after they had sustained a TBI. Then they were tested on a spatial learning task at the end of the 7 days of exercise. Those who did not have access to a running wheel were cognitively impaired on this task, but those who exercised had elevated levels of BDNF in their brains and performed well on the spatial learning tasks. It would appear as if the voluntary running counteracted the cognitive impairment from the brain injury. We know that human TBI patients don't respond well to antidepressants. If the brain injury occurred in specific areas, like the basal ganglia, antidepressants can actually worsen depression. Certain antidepressants can cause seizures, and others can compromise motor function or actually result in cognitive impairment. So this poses a conundrum. What are alternative ways to treat depression in patients with TBI? In a 2010 study by Hoffman and colleagues, the researchers had patients with TBI exercise up to 4 times a week for 30 minutes per session. They found that the patients who engaged in higher activity had significant improvement in their Beck depression inventory scores, meaning that they demonstrated less depression symptoms. Those patients who had engaged in higher levels of exercise also reported improved sleep, community participation, and overall quality of life. In a similar study in 2012, Wise and colleagues asked patients with TBI to engage in 60 minutes of supervised aerobic exercise and 30-minute unsupervised aerobic exercise sessions 4 times a week. Patients who exercised more than 90 minutes per week had significantly reduced scores on the Beck Depression Inventory, meaning they had less depressive symptoms, and they also reported higher quality of life and mental health at the 10-week and 6-month assessments. So that was an even longer study, and it demonstrated long-lasting effects of exercise intervention. With these exciting findings, let's turn to our guest, military veteran Justin Davis. I can't wait for you to hear his personal story about how he used Golf Rehabilitation to overcome some of the symptoms that he was experiencing from TBI.
I'd like to first start by asking you if you can take us back to when you first decided to join the military and what led you to that, and what was your experience like?
Okay. Well, first off, thank you for having me on the show. And the first thing, I was a flight paramedic down in Southern California. After I played football in high school and in college, I got hurt playing football, and so I decided to go to paramedic school. So I was a paramedic down in Southern California for a while, and decided, I was kind of at the top of the pre-hospital food chain, I guess you can call it, and I was still so young. And I decided, I'm not going to want to do this for the next, 30 years until I'm old. So I need to think of something else to do. So I decided to, medical school. That was the next thing that made sense. So, I was looking around to see, what different opportunities or what different options I had available, and lo and behold, the old Uncle Sam, the U.S. Army, came along and said, "Hey, well, you want to go to medical school? Well, come and join the Army, and we'll pay for you to go to all medical school. You'll never have a dime of debt or anything." So I said, "Hey, well, that's a great opportunity." So I signed on the dotted line and never took one day of medical school classes the entire time. So it was that was what got me into the Army. I mean, we were at a wartime anyway, so I was looking to see how I could do my part as well. But those two things, medical school and the fact that we needed good medical people in the military at the time, were the two main factors that got me in. June of 2005, that was the year that I joined up and left for basic training. So I went to basic training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. In July 1st. I shipped out July 1st of 2005 to Fort Sill. Was at Fort Sill. Then I went to Fort Sam Houston, Texas, for our advanced individual training, which is our training after basic, where you kind of get your specific jobs that you're going to be doing in the military, and that's where you get the training for that job. So I was there for, it was about 6 or 7 months at Fort Sam Houston in Texas, and then went up to Fort Riley, Kansas. That was my first duty station, my actual first post where I was, an actual soldier after all the training and stuff. So that's sort of the base that I was located at.
Okay, so now I know we talked a little bit before about your experience with traumatic brain injury, and can you tell us a little bit about, you said that you did experience some of that during your time in the military, and Can you tell us a little bit about that? I know you have a very unique situation that we'll talk about as well.
While I was in the military, I served 2 tours. I served one in Iraq and one in Afghanistan. While I was I had 3 pretty serious traumatic brain injuries while I was in the military. I had one in Iraq. It was a vehicle-on-vehicle accident, actually like a motor vehicle accident. That was the first one. And then I had a pretty bad one at a training exercise at Fort Irwin, California, prior to deploying to Afghanistan for my second tour. And then I had one in Afghanistan. We had an IED that hit our vehicle during a sandstorm, because I was a flight medic, so we never, we're on the ground very often, but, the enemies still can figure out when there's sandstorms, that we're going to be on the ground. No one's going to be flying during those, so, they can figure out, well, this is the route to where the injured people are at, so they put, IEDs along those routes. And so we got hit with one of those. That was the last, in September of 2010, that was the last pretty bad TBI that I had, and that got me medevaced to Walter Reed in D.C. for the next 3 years after that, but we'll go into that a little bit later.
Wow.
So we're at 2010, so September of 2010 I got medevaced to Walter Reed Army Medical Center in Washington, D.C., and like I said, that's where I was for the next almost 3 years.
Can you tell us a little bit about what happened there and how you kind of started to work on rehabilitation and what that experience was like?
Sure. Well, when I got there, I don't remember a lot of the beginning parts of it, but when I was there, they were doing a lot of brain scans and a lot of stuff to figure out what we're going to do with with the brain injuries, what deficiencies that I was going to have, what stuff that I was going to, if things got worse, what was going to happen. And, along the way, with all the scans, the MRIs, PET scans, they found that I had 2 brain tumors. And so, didn't know if they think that they were caused by the trauma, the initial, the blast or the traumatic brain injuries not healing before getting another traumatic brain injury on top of it, and then that not healing and getting another one on top of it, just the consistent trauma to the brain without the brain getting the chance to heal caused those masses and tumors in your brain. So I was having some really bad balance issues, hormone issues, with testosterone and all that kind of stuff. My testosterone levels were like in the teens, like 15, 16, when they should be, 900. So they didn't know what they wanted to do. They say, do we operate? Do we do this? Do we do that? So my parents were back there, and we decided, okay, we're going to take. I had a pretty big one. I had one on my pituitary gland, and then I had another one that was back in pushing on my cerebellum and my brainstem and all that kind. I mean, it was the MRI on my brainstem. It should be perfectly round and stuff, and mine was crushed. It almost looked like Mrs. Pac-Man, because it was crushed like that bad. So they decided, okay, so we're going to do surgeries, and so we were getting prepped for that, and my parents had gone back home for a little while, just kind of get the kid, kind of get the home settled back again, and get things situated here to go back. And for some reason, my doctor took another MRI before he did the surgery. It wasn't a practice that he normally does either, and decided to do it, and he found another tumor when they did that MRI. So surgery got canceled. He said, if we would have gone in and done that, he's like, you wouldn't have, you wouldn't have made it off the table. So that was a pretty hard thing to, to understand, I guess, because I didn't get, well, why not? I mean, you were going in there to take one out anyway. Well, but he said, it wouldn't have ended good and this and that. So, I mean, someone was looking over me then, and I mean, it was from then on. It was, I mean, things have happened that has just been crazy. That I'm still here after the multiple things that should have made me not be here. So that was the first stage, and like, oh, whew, we dodged a bullet there. So that was, like I said, about 6 months into my stay at Walter Reed. It was canceled surgery. Now what?
Right.
So after that, we decided to I started doing some vestibular testing, some vestibular therapy, which your vestibular system is, besides your bones and muscles, your vestibular system is what helps control balance and stuff. And so we did quite a bit of, I did almost a year of vestibular therapy. And when I started, it was, my vestibular system was not functioning at all. It was 0%. And so in that year, we got it back. They got it back to about 30% of normal, which was the minimum that they could have, so I could actually leave the hospital. So,
oh my goodness,
your body compensates crazily well, and I thought my balance was decent, but come to find out, it was terrible. So it was kind of a slow process of getting better. I mean, but I wasn't really feeling that I was getting any better, but it was just, kind of to check a box so I could get out of the hospital and, see what kind of life I could live.
So now, how did you get involved with the 5th Military Golf Association? I believe you...
Yeah, the Salute Military Golf Association, SMGA, is a East Coast-based golf foundation that helps wounded vets from Walter Reed and now many other places as well, learn the game of golf for rehabilitation reasons. They found that golf is a great rehabilitation tool for vets with PTSD, with amputations, with cognitive issues, with traumatic brain injuries, all that kind of stuff, because it really makes you center yourself and makes you use parts of your brain to balance and all that kind of stuff that you really can't do in any other sport. And it gets you out in the open. It gets you with like-minded guys that that is a big thing with with wounded vets, is that you're a part of a really important team. When you're deployed, and then all of a sudden you get hurt, and now you're just a number at a hospital with you're not with your guys anymore. You're by yourself, and that's a tough pill to swallow. And so this gets guys back in the loop with guys that have been there, done that as well. So they didn't have to explain themselves. They didn't have to talk differently. They could just talk openly and freely for the time that they were out there, and everyone got it. It was something that everyone understood. So the last about 6 to 8 months that I was at Walter Reed, I got involved with them, and it really made a huge difference in my life, and my healing, I think, was tenfold faster and improved dramatically because of that association and my ability to be able to be a part of them.
That's great. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like, the initial treatment? I believe you were on several medications, and there were some pretty tough side effects with those. And can you talk a little bit about how your experience with the golf rehabilitation helped with that?
we had, I mean, as you can imagine, I mean, you get medevac to Army hospital from combat. I mean, they're just gonna make you. They feel bad. I mean, and I get it. I get it. They feel bad for you. They just want you to be comfortable. They just don't want you to be in pain all the time, and so they just they pump you full of meds, and then down the road they're wondering, well, why are you dependent on these meds, or why are you addicted to opiates now? I mean, because well, maybe because you've been giving me an IV of it for 6 months, and and pills and every other kind of drug on top of that for this, for that, and you take 10 meds, but 6 of them are just for side effects for the other 4. I mean,
right.
That's what it seemed to be like, and so I didn't. For me, I refused a lot of the I don't know what the SSRIs and the depression and the mood stabilizer, all that kind of stuff, because I saw what it did to it made zombies out of so many people at Walter Reed, that they were just they were, like I said, they slept and ate, and that was their life, because I mean they were so just out of it. And this association and stuff gets guys like that off the couch, gets them out in the open, which is going to help your mood, and it's going to help your sense of well-being automatically. So I mean, it gets a lot of guys off those serious like stuff, those type of meds that just turn guys into gain weight and zombie. I mean, it just makes them have no emotions and no anything, and it just there's no way to live. And so that's a big thing for me, that to get those guys, get them into playing golf and getting them outside, and that can be their drug of choice.
I love it. That's great. So
yeah, that was why I mean that's one of the main reasons that that I started my foundation. So was that main thing.
Let's talk about that for a little bit. So that kind of this was the inspiration behind you starting your own foundation, and I believe you were saying that when you moved back to the West Coast, that you tried to search for similar foundations to what you had found over on the East Coast, and you said that there was virtually nothing here. Is that correct? And
yes,
so
that's exactly right. And as shocking as it sounds, because the East Coast, the weather's terrible. I mean, it's hot and humid in the summertime, and cold and snowy and stuff in the wintertime. But they had a few organizations like this back there. So, in 2003, I got medically retired in May of 2013. So I moved back home to California, and I thought, I'd want to get back involved with an organization like I was back east, just to keep involved, and to keep it was good therapy for me and stuff like that. So the more you do it, the more it's going to help. So I started looking for stuff, and nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. I was kind of shocked. I'm like, we got perfect weather here, 350 days a year, and I mean, golf courses galore everywhere, and nothing like this. So I'm thinking, okay, well, what do I need to do to give the vets in California the same opportunity that I got and a lot of my buddies got back east? And so a little conversation with Pops and Mom, and it started, and now we just got our tax exempt ID number, and so we're a 501c3 nonprofit now, and we're going to start our clinics, and going to get our name out and on the West Coast, so we can get these guys in California the same help that I got, and it's truly, I think, life changing in some of the things that we can do.
That's wonderful news. Can you tell everybody the name of your foundation, and then where the chapters are in California?
Well, right now we're called the Wounded Patriots Golf Association. Our we're going to have 4 chapters in California. I'm hoping by this time next year we'll have all 4 chapters up and going. Sacramento, Bakersfield, Orange County, San Diego will be our 4 chapters, and we do 8 to 10 week clinics, 2 to 3 times a year in each location. And if you are part of the organization, you get polo shirts, hats, pants, shorts, golf shoes, and a set of custom golf clubs, all at no charge to the vets. And all conflicts are welcome to my foundation. I'm not just a lot of these foundation stuff nowadays are all post 9/11, just the Iraq and Afghanistan guys, and I don't like that at all, because the Vietnam guys already got a tough go of it when they got back, and so I support all conflicts. So if you're a vet of any of the wars that we've gone through, you're invited to come out to my clinics. You complete, like I said, once you complete eight of the. If I do 8-week or 10-week clinics, depending how which one I do, if you do 6 of the 8 or 8 of the 10, then you get fitted for your custom set of clubs, and then you'll also have playing opportunities in mini tournaments throughout the state, and practice facilities, playing opportunities around your area that you can go play for free, and instruction from a PG professional that's going to be around your area that you can go, so you can keep your game sharp and everything. So it's a good deal, and it's a good way to learn a sport that you can do for the rest of your life, and something that you can it's 4 or 5 hours a day out there in the nice weather, and it's the best antidepressant I can ever think of.
I love it. Wow, well, I have to say that gave me goosebumps when you said, that there's a lot of foundations out there that are trying to target, veterans from the more of the after what happened after 9/11, and I think it's just really great and inspiring that you are focusing on all veterans, because I think that's really
what makes the post 9/11 vet more important than the Vietnam vet. I mean, there's nothing I can come up with that makes it any different. Those guys fought in a war that was just as brutal or more brutal than what we went through post 9/11, and I mean, those guys need the help, and they've been dealing with this shell shock or whatever they called it when they got back, and haven't got the mental health help that that the guys nowadays get to an extent. I mean, it's still bad, the VA and everything, with the mental health stuff that the guys get nowadays, but the Vietnam guys even had it worse. So I mean, anything that I can do to help those guys with with that mental health and that whole stigma that goes along with it in this country, that they need to know that anyone can come out to our stuff, and there's no stigma. Everybody knows what's going on. Everyone's got it, and we're just here to help.
That's great. I love it.
The email is golf4vets44@gmail.com. So it's GOLF, the number 4, VETS, the number 4 at gmail.com. Golf4vets44@gmail.com. And then,
well, thank you so much, and thank you for serving our country. Can't thank you enough for that. So
thanks for having me, and just hope everyone, like I said, if you have any questions, or if you are a disabled vet, or combat wounded vet, or whatever, feel free just to reach out. I appreciate you having me on and letting me get my foundation information out there, and I hope we can, if we help one guy, it's worth it to me. So thanks again, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the NEI podcast. If you're interested in learning more about traumatic brain injury, we invite you to check out our new CME booklet called Beyond the Impact, an update on the assessment, prevention, and treatment of neuropsychiatric sequelae associated with traumatic brain injury.